All right, what's up, guys? So, WrestleMania has uploaded a video titled 15 Most Disastrous WWE Returns. Yeah, one that I could think about right off of the top of the dome is Shane McMahon, his last return when I can't remember what injury he got, but yeah, he jumped and came down and then something happened, and I'm like, dang, bro. Yeah, that's one of those returns where it was like, okay, what do we do? Because I feel like if it wasn't for Snoop Dogg, it's like, how do you go about that match and things? I guess they probably would just went about it any other way, where it's like you know how like a wrestler, if they're like, oh, I'm injured or something's wrong, and then yeah, they write them off TV. But his was legit, his was real. So yeah, man. It was good that Snoop Dogg, he just, he improvised and was all like, "Oh, let me do something." And I have to say that was probably one of the like best celebrity moments in WWE, because you would have thought like Snoop Dogg, that's how he really be watching wrestling and stuff, because yeah, it's like for you to just be able to improvise. I feel like even though I'm a wrestling fan, I probably would it probably would have took me a little longer to think of some stuff like that, but yeah, man, but it's like he's somebody where it's like he probably be having conversations with wrestlers, be talking, then they telling him stories. And so yeah, Snoop Dogg, he's somebody where I think, what did he? I feel like he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. If not, he should. Him, Shane McMahon, and yeah, that's what I was gonna say about Shane McMahon, is that he ain't got nothing to prove to nobody. If Shane McMahon wanted to get back in the ring, he's just doing that in his own free will. But it's like how Stephanie McMahon is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Shane McMahon, he's right up there too, because he's somebody where I'm like, you've seen this man in like at least in the eras of me watching wrestling, and then just some eras I went back and watched, because I was like, I didn't get to see those eras and stuff. But that's one thing about it. I never seen, and maybe I just need to watch more wrestling, but I feel like I've seen enough to know that I've never seen a bad Shane McMahon moment, match, video, the promo, any of that stuff. Like I've never seen, like, at any time when Shane McMahon, I have to say he's the one McMahon where people might have booed him, but they low key loved him. Like Shane McMahon, he's somebody where I'm like, nah, bro, induct him into the Hall of Fame, But anyways, that's just my own personal opinion. But let's go ahead and get to this video. Make sure, if you guys haven't, go subscribe to WrestleMania. And with that being said,
such a unique entity
that was disastrous.
The art of a pro wrestling return delivers a feeling like nothing else. The shock, the joy, the elation, it's everything. WWE in particular prides itself on evoking such reactions, so much so that they become elemental to the Royal Rumble match. Anyone can draw a sizable reaction when the buzzer sounds and their music hits. Even Sarah Logan.
When Carlito, when he came back, that was one of those things where I didn't really get to see a whole lot of him growing up. But yeah, I was like, but just, in the moments I did, he was a favorable wrestler and stuff. So seeing him come back, I did like his time with WWE this time around.
Was met with a somewhat adoring reception when she returned in the 2022 Rumble. But what happens when those shock returns go terribly wrong?
Yep.
Join us now as WrestleMania looks at 15 of the most disastrous returns in WWE history. Be sure to subscribe.
Because I just think Shane McMahon, he just wasn't physically ready to get back in the ring and stuff. But I guess, like, and I think it's just one of those things where it's like, man, it's like I've been doing this my whole life. I ain't gonna have no problems with that. I took some time away and come back. And then it's like I just say that because I remember when I tried to get back into jogging, and with no training, no stretching or nothing, I'm like, fam, I am in pain. Like, even when I just do like little walks and stuff, I'm like, I mean, not like little walks, but it's like if I try to like walk the same distance rather than jogging, it's a lot. It's a lot on the body.
Bell for daily wrestling videos. Number 15, The Nasty Boys. A presumed forever shelled upon Jerry Saggs' 97 exit from WCW, the Nasty Boys shot back to relevancy for anyone who was still watching TNA in 2010, even if there wasn't a lot of them, as they joined the congregation of WWE cast-offs hired to appease Hulk Hogan. Hogan was fond of Saggs and Brian Knobbs, though not fond enough to save them from the sack. They were released from their TNA contracts after less than 3 months. But in 2007, 3 years before their embarrassing TNA stint, Knobbs and Saggs had a somehow much more embarrassing run. Returning to WWE, they wrestled Dave Taylor and Drew McIntyre in an untelevised tryout, the match being designed to test the waters for a ruthless
Dang,
aggression.
I'm like Drew Mac. It's crazy how like when they don't have a beard, it's like some Clark Kent stuff and things. I didn't even recognize him. That like I'm telling you, that version of Drew McIntyre could have came up to me and somebody could have. And I guess like maybe it's like you hear his voice and it's like it sounds like Drew McIntyre, but if somebody were to approach me and be all like, "Hey, who is this guy?" and they pull up Drew McIntyre, I'm like, I don't know, like an oversized man. Like, I don't know who he is and things, but yeah, it's crazy how like but on top of that too, he was a lot younger and stuff. So that's why I'm like, yeah, he's not
Nasty
recognizable.
Boys reunion. It failed. The Nasties were overly stiff, stagnant, and senseless. The icing on the cake came from when they botched their already illogical double team finisher. They were let go from WWE the next day as not even Vince McMahon, the same man who thought Bob Backlund was hot property in 2000, wanted anything to do with the Golden Era duo. Number 14, the Headbangers. Splitting up the Tag Team Championships in 2016 to accompany a rehashed brand split concept presented WWE with its most oblivious issue. They had few credible tag teams to actually hold the now 2 sets of double titles. So few, in fact, that the tournament to crown SmackDown's inaugural tag team champions ran out of established pairings before the first round. They needed backup. They needed an incentive for fans to actually care about the tournament and the new blue straps. They needed the Headbangers. Yeah, the Headbangers. The same guys who spent their 16 years absent from WWE being bashed by the company for not being the New Age Outlaws. Returning for a 3-match spat, but it's probably one of the most least memorable returns of all time.
Yeah, I was about to
Number
say
13,
I don't really remember
Brown.
that much.
D'Lo Brown, a can't-miss wrestler from the Attitude Era whose career peaked when he became a simultaneous Intercontinental and European champion. When he was brought back to WWE in 2008, it wasn't such a great return. The reason for Brown's brief WWE revival was simple. He had worked in Japan. Vince McMahon was obsessed with anyone who dared learn the Japanese style of wrestling upon their exit from WWE. Brown in turn worked stiffer matches. His return versus Santino Marella of all people featured a particularly gnarly sliding shoulder tackle that looked every bit as vicious as a Gunther chop. Unfortunately though, it wasn't to be for D'Lo Brown in WWE's PG era.
Doing like that's probably it too. I'm like, bro, where's the like I can't do it because I'm like, I feel like you got like you have to have like his size of neck, and then you also have to like mentally or like mentally but neck wise, like you got like mentally neck prepare yourself. But yeah, it's like he wasn't doing that. But I like, no, jokes aside, I honestly, because I was watching wrestling at that time. I started watching it a year prior. Before, well, no, yeah, it was a year prior because it was right after WrestleMania 20. Actually, no, Backlash 2007. But yeah, after WrestleMania 23. But that's when I had started watching wrestling. And yeah, I feel like 2008, I definitely was watching wrestling a lot because I was like, yeah, I went to a show that year. I went to No Way Out that next year. So yeah, I was heavily involved. I do not, maybe it's just because I didn't really know too much about D'Lo Brown, but anyways.
He was jobbing to Snitsky, Jamie Noble, Manu, Lance Cade, and Charlie Haas by the year's end, lasting just 6 months under an official WWE contract. It was a pointless return and, like the Headbangers in 2016, was executed with the sole purpose of eliciting a seismic Attitude Era level reaction. Well, it didn't. Number 12, Emma. Was Paul Triple H Levesque actually a good head of creative for WWE in 2022, or did he just rehire everyone whom Vince McMahon fired to make himself look good? Indeed, everyone returned to WWE between July and December 2022. Karrion Kross, Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Hit Row, Bronson Reed, and Emma. You'd be forgiven for not recalling a return from exile. Answering Ronda Rousey's open challenge that October, the Aussie was a pristine example of how to add depth to a roster bloated with megastars.
Because I was like, dang, that was like, there was a moment where she was like kind of like beefing, and so I didn't have a problem with it. Like, I remember when she came back, I was like, oh yeah, I remember her. So at least me, I didn't have a problem with it. But anyway.
Exactly must see, but she nailed the fundamentals and could carry a solid match. But against Ronda, she looked lost and uncomfortable. It wasn't an inspired comeback, nor did it open the door for anything enthralling before Emma was released once again. It's believed that the most notable highlight of her second run was the way in which she announced the departure, quote-tweeting WWE's announcement of the 2024 Elimination Chamber heading to Perth by calling it a dream to make it onto the card. Emma quote-tweeted that to announce her exit. Number 11, Tegan Nox. Now, if you think Emma
That's
had a
crazy.
forgettable
Like I did. At least I was like, I ain't see that, but yeah, that's wild.
WWE comeback, then cast your eyes upon Tegan Nox, who had a return so forgettable that many weren't aware that she'd even been released, instead assuming that WWE, as was often the case, had nothing for her. Cut from the company in November 2021 and returning in December 2022, the Welsh woman showed no promise upon returning, despite being thrown a bone in the form of a makeshift alliance with Liv Morgan. That was Tegan's typecast in WWE. Put her in a meaningless tag team, have them do absolutely nothing, break them up, rinse and repeat. It didn't work, and it couldn't work. Re-released in November 2024, Nixon Newell, as she was again called, returned to the independent circuit without the buzz and appeal that commonly follows WWE mass releases. She worked just 12 matches since, none of which have been for a major promotion, which best summarizes her disaster of a second WWE stint. Number 10, Kevin Nash. 8th July 2002. That is the night Kevin Nash's career died. That is a bold take, obviously, but it rings hollow when assessing Nash's legacy after his match that night. Partnering with Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, X-Pac, and The Big Show to defeat Rob Van Dam, Booker T, Goldust, and Bubba Ray and Spike Dudley made for a strange lineup, but that isn't what fans were discussing. They were talking about the freak injury served to Big Daddy Cool. Big booting Booker T, Nash then went to steamroll T's corner, but instead he tripped on Booker's ankle, colliding awkwardly with Bubba Ray and falling to the floor in a heap. The diagnosis? A torn quadricep. Nash on his Click This podcast described the feeling in his knee as like a shotgun going off.
It felt like a shotgun. It felt like somebody, I mean, anybody that's ever torn an ACL, like magnify that times, I mean, you know, your ACL is, you know, like that. You fucking want, like you can feel it go as you're going down. You can just feel it rip. And then I went down and Bubba was really cool because Bubba like bent over me and he was talking to me and I said, I think it's my fucking knee. And he said, you know, and I'm I'm pulling on it right there to see if it's snug.
Disheartening aspect is that this was Kevin's first match in 4 months after having recovered from a biceps injury suffered in March, itself coming just a month after he and Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan had returned to WWE.
I'm like, maybe, yeah, that's the thing where I like with stretching, I guess, hope, because I'm like, bro, man, that's insane. It's like you come back from an injury for 4 months, and it's like you come back and injure yourself again. Yeah, that's some wild stuff, man.
The injury is hilarious.
That is
wild.
More
depressing than anything else, and one which marred Nash's legacy until his 2017 retirement. Number 9, King Kong Bundy and Nikolai Volkov. The King Kong Bundy was semi-retired, and Nikolai Volkov was on his way there. Of course, WWE offered them both a gig. They were recklessly thrown into supporting roles within Ted DiBiase's million-dollar corporation stable, Bundy as a right-hand enforcer, and Volkov as a surprisingly sympathetic babyface forced to do DiBiase's dirty work following the very real collapse of the Soviet Union. Neither man impressed. Bundy was an immobile buffoon whose squash matches often made his victims look like the star he was supposed to be, while Nikolai afforded a chance to display a new style in his new position, that probably being the toupee that he was wearing. The new generation era exposed both men's weaknesses. They can no longer get by on just effective character work. Audiences definitely expected more, especially for a man the size of King Kong Bundy. The Undertaker and Diesel had proven to be compelling in-ring giants, establishing the new style that had to be adopted for workers of their ilk. Bundy received the memo, but he failed to adapt his wrestling style, leading to an incredibly awful run. I mean, this was a man who once main evented WrestleMania with Hulk Hogan. Number 8, The Good Brothers. Vince McMahon didn't particularly like the Good Brothers. He didn't particularly like anyone, but he especially didn't like anyone who carved out their career outside of WWE. Signing them, AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, away from New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2016, McMahon booked Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson as cannon fodder for John Cena to dismantle, pretend scientists analyzing Big E's testicles, and capped off their wavy WWE debut year with a victory of the Raw Tag Team Championships at the Royal Rumble on the pre-show. It didn't scan as anything of note, and it remained that way until they were released from WWE in April of 2020, approximately a week after they had their careers quite literally buried by The Undertaker at WrestleMania 36. Triple H didn't particularly like the Good Brothers either, bringing them back in October of 2022 because, again, he just brought back everyone who was contractually available. The game did precisely nothing with Gallows and Anderson. They were involved in an on and off again partnership with
Yeah, but I'm like Gallows. I do remember who he was before he was Luke Gallows, and yeah, it was like, what was his name? Where he just so no, like that. I guess like for somebody that didn't watch wrestling, you didn't know about Luke Gallows before he was Luke Gallows. So I think that was, I'll have to check again. But anyways, I remember he was a part of a tag team, and so when he'll like they'd be walking him out to the ring, and he'd just be just like, he had this look on his face like where he just like nothing is going on, a tongue sticking out and stuff. And then they ring the bell that he just snapped and goes crazy. He starts losing his mind, ring the bell again, right back into the same zone. Like it, so they kept doing that. And I'm like, I guess it's entertaining, but then as you get older, it's like, yeah, bro, you can have a little bit more character than that. So I guess like, I don't know, my thing is that if I got to work with somebody like that, my goal is to get them to break character. So I'm saying I'm cracking jokes. I'm doing any and everything that I can to at least get like 20% of a smile. Just so I'm all like, okay, I'm like, that's all that I needed to do. I'm like, yeah, you could beat this man in the match, but I'd like to get him to crack while he's in character. That's why I feel like how you win in something like that. But anyway,
Styles were relegated to NXT after that failed, and then they were subtly binned in February 2025, where their post-WWE careers have remained. Number 7, The Ultimate Warrior. Jim Ross, a legendary voice of wrestling and WWE's former executive vice president of talent relations, brilliantly described Vince McMahon's harebrained decision to rehire the Warrior in '96.
We had great expectations that magic could be reproduced, reverting back to the old days of the heyday of the Warrior. You know, there could have been things done in the ring, an interview segment, or just admit that he's hurt and that he's can't be cleared, whatever. There's a million ways to get around that. That's a non-issue to me.
It's safe to say WWE did not relive the original magic of the Ultimate Warrior. Not even close. The Warrior returned against Hunter Hearst Helmsley at WrestleMania 12. This was not the same Ultimate Warrior that fans have been infatuated with. No, this isn't a reference to the supposed Warrior doppelganger who saved Hulk Hogan 4 years later at WrestleMania 8. This is a reference to the very fact that the Warrior either could not or would not care. He phoned in every performance as if it were a greatest hits package. Shoulder tackle, gorilla press, big splash. Done for the evening. Fans needed more in this era, and they weren't going to get it from an aging Warrior, injured or not. During this run, Warrior didn't even appear at some shows that he was even booked to be on. Number 6, Brian Christopher. Now, rather this was one of the most disastrous returns in a sense, it was one of the most saddest returns in WWE history. Brian Grandmaster Sexay received a muted reception from an audience who had viewed him as a rock star just 10 years earlier. Indeed, Christopher, the legitimate son of Jerry the King Lawler, was rolled out by WWE during Jerry's horrific feud with Michael Cole, siding with Cole while he was branded as a bigger screw-up than Charlie Sheen by his supposedly babyface father. It was eerily silent when he emerged, each beat of the iconic Too Cool music being heard as Christopher performed his and Scotty 2 Hotty's full dance routine. Doing so without the backing track of 14,000 screaming fans made the entrance one of WWE's most awkward, painful, and joyless moments. The former tag team champion was brought back twice in 2014 alongside Scotty and Rikishi for various Too Cool reunions, and just as well he was there. On this occasion, he was received as the superstar he had portrayed throughout.
I think that's how they should have did it too with Rikishi and I don't know the other. I feel like I should know the other guy's name, but I don't. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. But anyways, yeah, I think if they would have brought him back in a traditional sense, then yeah, I think it would have been better. But it's kind of like you look at an artist where it's like if they're a part of a big band. And like okay, so let's say it's a rock band and the bass player comes out, like yeah, they haven't heard nothing from that band in years, but the bass player comes out with an album. It's not going to do as well as like the whole band and stuff. So yeah, I think that's how they should have went about that. But I don't know. I'm not a writer. I'm not. But I think yeah, they should have went about it in a traditional sense. But yeah, if he's the son of Jerry Lawler, then I'm like I think that it should have been more because that was like an era of wrestling where I don't really remember too much of it. But yeah, I think they should have maybe had it where it's like he was a little bit more serious. It's like, hey, you ain't gonna be putting your hands on my dad and stuff. And then yeah, but I think that's how I would have went about it and stuff. But anyway,
the Attitude Era. Still, this 2011 comeback lives on in infamy. Number 5, Eva Marie. Now, if you want the short version, Eva Marie was horrific.
You know, the hate that that woman gets, it is insane. But I can understand why. Because, yeah, you know, when you see her wrestling compared to, like, I'm trying to think of somebody, yeah, Maxine Dupree or something, or you know, and I'm trying to even think Roxanne, where it's like you have like more years of wrestling experience than well, that might be, you know, jumping the gun when making that statement and things. But my thing is this: if somebody like she's been appearing on WWE a lot longer than Roxanne, okay, let's just say that. So you would think that it's like, okay, I'm in surrounded by the biggest wrestling environment out there and stuff. You should have learned something. I feel like my thing is this: if they was like, hey, you guys spend one year with WWE and then learn everything that you need to learn and have like a 5-star match, I think I would be able to have a 5-star match. It might not be a 5-star match with people with the WWE universe because they don't know me like that, but at least I would be like, my thing is this: I would try to leave up out of there with people remembering, like, dang, he did pretty good, you know, for this being his first match. Yeah, he did pretty good, because I'm like, I don't want it to be no normal match. I want this to be a match that people can remember, whether it's a ladder match, Hell in a Cell, what else, a Extreme Rules. It has to be something where it's like it's a memorable match, you know. So I'll deal with the injuries and all that stuff afterwards, but I'm like, I want this to be a good match and things, you know. So I just think that with her, she didn't apply herself as a wrestler and stuff. I think if she would have applied herself a little bit more, stayed in the performance center like day and night, like, you know how like Curry, they say he don't leave the gym until he shoots 100 threes. With her, it's like, yeah, you needed to stay off in, the performance center until you learned something. But anyways, yeah, I think if not that, they should have at least had her as a manager figure, you know, where it's like, okay, you don't wrestle, but you can take like a, you know, like a power bomb through the table or something, or, you know, a steel chair to the back, or it's like something crazy and things. But anyways,
if you want the long version, Eva Marie was signed to WWE by chance, failed to develop even an ounce of wrestling ability despite having full access to a world-class training facility and coaches. She left the company, resurfaced after 4 years having still failed to develop her skills as a pro wrestler. She did literally nothing other than get demolished by Piper Niven and Shayna Baszler, and was cut from the company again in November 2021. It isn't hyperbole to brandish Marie as one of the worst wrestlers in WWE history. She really was that bad. While Vince McMahon chose her, of all people, to re-sign while embarking on a slew of regular roster cullings is a theory that will forever remain without an explanation. Number 4, the British Bulldog. To many, the British Bulldog was a hero. He did the unthinkable at SummerSlam 92 when he ripped the Intercontinental Championship away from Bret Hart in the main event at Wembley Stadium, the first time a British performer had achieved such a feat. His matches were regularly good, not great. He didn't have the drawing power that someone like Bret Hart did, but it didn't matter. Bulldog represented at the time an unrepresented nation who were going back to him no matter the situation. But his 1999 return literally ruined everything. Admittedly, this was the Englishman working at a reduced ability. A spinal infection that was a result of landing awkwardly on the mat in WCW left him without the same spark that he once had.
Dang.
He appeared only to be in the game for a quick payday while he could get one. While also evidently abusing steroids, he was always a hulking individual. By 99, he was nearing Hulk Hogan levels of mass. This run lasted just a few months before he departed again in May 2000. Number 3, Bret Hart. Bret Hart revolutionized the style of pro wrestling you see today. He understood the psychology of the medium, he knew the best manner into which to execute spots, and crucially, he knew how to combine the two. Returning to WWE in January of 2010 to draw a truce with Shawn Michaels, the Hitman was soon scheduled for a return to the ring. He was to face Vince McMahon in an all-holds-barred match, but despite the obviously heated aura of the storyline, you may recall that Hart did nothing from bell to bell. He beat the chairman about with a tire iron and ended the match angle with a sharpshooter, leading the extended Hart family to disfigure McMahon. Now, there was one problem with Bret's wrestling return. His insurance policy with Lloyd's of London forbade him from doing anything in the ring. They had caught on to other wrestlers claiming insurance for career-ending injuries before eventually resuming in-ring activities, and were hesitant to allow the match between Bret and Vince to go ahead before giving in, though with his insurance company closely monitoring the situation. Compare this pay-per-view showdown with a Bret match from his live event loop, and it's day and night in terms of how he wrestled, given the lack of attention to the latter. Number 2, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels should have remained forever retired after WrestleMania 26. It was a perfect wrestling retirement and allowed Michaels to spend more time with his family, specifically his then 9-year-old son Cameron. But the itch to wrestle again was too much, well as a Saudi Arabian payday as something he just couldn't pass up. Reuniting D-Generation X with Triple H versus the Brothers of Destruction of Kane and The Undertaker, the match was one of the worst of all time. Everything went wrong. Kane's mask fell off, Triple H tore his pectoral muscle minutes into the match, The Undertaker was going through the motions, and Shawn was well past it. He struggled. He wrestled as if he hadn't trained since retiring, which may have been true. He certainly hadn't reminded himself of how to safely moonsault to the floor. Making this worse is the knowledge that Michaels could have returned earlier than 2018 in situations where his opponents could have dragged at least a 3-star match out of him. Dream matches opposite AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan, the latter which had been teased as relatively possible in late 2013, would have been good, maybe even great, but instead, we got this, whatever this was supposed to be. And number 1, Ronda Rousey. Now everything changed when Ronda Rousey joined WWE's payroll.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey. Just to even talk on Shawn Michaels, though. I'm like, bro, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So my thoughts on the Bret Hart thing is that I think the insurance company, they should have definitely allowed him to do a little bit more. But at the same time, they're probably like, we ain't trying to have it where we spending all this money on you and stuff. So I can somewhat understand that. But overall, though, then with Shawn Michaels, I'm like, I think that it definitely should have been a thing where he wasn't ready to retire. I think that they should have held off on that match, dragged it out a little bit longer and things, and then had it where he retired when he was comfortable with retiring and stuff. And then with Ronda Rousey, I'm like, yeah, she's somebody. I think if they would have did like some character development with her, I think that because she had it down, like she definitely had the wrestling stuff down. I just think that, it's just with that character development that, it just wasn't, she just wasn't a watchable wrestler and stuff. So anyway.
At the 2018 Rumble, a legitimate shoot fighter, Ronda brought the exact style to WWE, offering a change of pace from the company's usual output that resulted in her debut match being instantly praised as one of the greatest firsts in pro wrestling. It was truly memorizing. Ronda cared, and it showed. However, everything changed when she came back to the WWE in the 2022 Royal Rumble. Ronda had taken to bad-mouthing fans on social media, returned as a babyface, which nobody wanted to see, though she seemingly wasn't told of this character direction. Ronda sported a major frown as she entered for the Rumble match, a trait that would become common for her. It was as if she hadn't been clued in on pro wrestling being a work, not a shoot, and that she should expect to be jeered at any opportunity. What resulted was one of the worst booked babyface runs in modern WWE history. A subsequent heel turn couldn't salvage the wreckage, nor could a long-awaited showdown versus Shayna Baszler, another of the 4 horsewomen contingent that Ronda was at the epicenter of. It was just a disaster from start to finish. But there you have it, folks. 15 of the most disastrous WWE returns. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.
Yeah, I think that Ronda Rousey, she's somebody, I think at some point in time, maybe, possibly, they might induct her in the Hall of Fame, but it's going to be like years down the road. And who knows, maybe then they might have it where she comes back, does some stuff. I guess like if she's wanting to like fully retire from like combat sports and stuff. I can see it where she does some things with WWE and then eventually, goes and just lives her life doing whatever and stuff. So, but anyways, yeah, man. But I think Eva Marie, she's somebody where it's like, that I have to say that's probably the one on this list where I'm like, if there's anybody that could have been number one, it could have been Eva Marie, because it just seemed like that it just wasn't there for her to, like, she have character, or she didn't really wrestle like that. So yeah, so I'm like, man, Eva Marie, hopefully one day she gains that wrestling ability and stuff. But anyways, yeah, no, make sure if you guys haven't, go subscribe to WrestleLamia for more videos like this. Like, subscribe to me too, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.